I'm Linda Zimmerman, and this is the Bethlehem branch of the AAUW. It's September 13th, 2011, and we're welcoming our speaker for the evening. Sara Klingner is my backdoor neighbor. She is a dog and cat lover, a knitter, a seamstress. She even helped me with a project once, a dedicated organic gardener, and she's a nurse midwife. She's here this evening in her role as program manager of the Nurse Family Partnership of the Visiting Nurse Association of St. Luke's Hospital. And she's the supervisor of the Bethlehem team. She is accompanied tonight with two of her co-supervisors. One is Nancy D., who is right there. She's the supervisor of the Easton team. And Kelly Burke, right here, is the supervisor of the Allentown team. So the three of them work closely together to help these young mothers who need as much help as they can get. The Nurse Family Partnership will be celebrating its 10th anniversary this November, and their goal is helping first-time mothers succeed. Sara has been there from the beginning, and she told me this is her ideal job. She would like to share with us stories of the young mothers who have been served by the partnership and why this nonprofit organization is worthy of the community's support through donations as well as volunteerism. She and her fellow supervisors will entertain questions afterwards. So let's welcome Sara Klingner.
Thanks, Linda. Now, I'm not really comfortable with a microphone, so if you find that you can't hear me, make a motion so I move it back into position. The Nurse Family Partnership at the VNA of St. Luke's is part of a national program of Nurse Family Partnership, and our headquarters is actually Denver, Colorado. The VNA site, as Linda said, has been there for 10 years, and originally when Nurse Family Partnership came to the Lehigh Valley, we had a site in Bethlehem, one in Easton, and one in Allentown. And in 2007, Nancy D. and I started talking about bringing the sites together. And we did. We wrote that very large grant to have that happen. And we currently have 12 nurses serving 250 families. Now, we say 250, that's supposed to be our max given to us, the numbers given to us by the state. We currently are at 261 and 192 babies currently. Mm-hmm. So, as a mother and her baby graduates, when the child turns 2, we enroll another one, and it just goes on and on and on. So it's not like we start in September and we see them until December and then they're done. We are with them for that entire period. We enroll early in pregnancy, they graduate when the baby turns 2. So pretty exciting, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Now, all of our clients must enroll in pregnancy. They are all first-time mothers, and they all continue. Well, we like for them to continue until 2, but since it's a voluntary program, some mothers feel that they get what they need before the baby turns 2, and it's so sad sometimes to see them move. We don't like that part. So, it would be wonderful if we could bring clients here to meet you, but they tend to be rather shy. And so instead of bringing an actual mom, we brought lots of pictures to share. So by looking at them, I can tell you the pictures. I tell you the story behind each picture. So first, I'm going to introduce to you Crystal and baby Kaya. Crystal was raised in the children and youth system in Philadelphia. Her mother died of a drug overdose when she was 2, died in front of her. She lived all over the state of Pennsylvania and New Jersey in foster care. And as a teenager, she came to live at Valley Youth House, and she was pregnant. So one of our Nurse Family Partnership nurses opened her, and her goals were to have a healthy baby, to provide a home for her baby, something that she had had very little of, and to have a job at some point that would support herself and this baby. She was a high school graduate, which was really worked in her favor. She wanted to be the first person in her family to be off the welfare system. That was a really big deal for her. She had never known that stability. So, after having her baby, she went to cosmetology school at Metro, which is on 7th Street, across from Lehigh Valley Mall. But the bus wouldn't take her there. The bus said that that was too dangerous. There was no bus stop over there. So she would get up in the morning, she would take Kaya to daycare, and she would ride 2 buses to get to the mall. It took her to the Macy's side. And from Macy's, she would walk through that parking lot all the way over and crossed 7th Street on foot. She was an excellent student. She was so excited to be doing something with her life. And when it came time to take her exam, she had no money to buy the kit that she needed to do that program, to actually do the exam. So we found a funder that would do that for her. She passed, and she received an award for how well she had done in school. It was so exciting, and the most exciting was that she cut her nurse's hair. And true to form, she did get herself a job. It was very, very frightening to, I'm going to get in trouble with this, I see. She was very excited. She bought a car so that she could get where she needed to go. And there she is with Kaya at age 2. Beautiful picture, isn't it? She still lives here in the Lehigh Valley, and that's really a wonderful thing for us that we get to see her. So that's our Crystal. Nurses working with families, thank you, Kelly. Nurses working with families work according to the client's goal, or as we say in nurse-family partnership, the client's heart's desire. And of course that means that you may have a young couple like this to say, well, I want to be a pediatrician. This young mom is currently a sophomore in high school. She did go back to school. This baby was born in June, and Miguel, her boyfriend, is currently a junior in high school. They both went back, and this was a major goal for them, that after the birth of their son, that they would go back to school. So that was their main goal. She got pregnant as a freshman, and her family said, how are you going to do this? How will you go back to school? You need to stay home and raise your baby. But the family has continued to offer support. Both Miguel's family and her family have continued to help with childcare, and Julian is thriving. Julian is our baby here. They are both committed to their son, and both families and both of them are very involved. Miguel also is maintaining a part-time job to help with all of the baby supplies. So, and their goals are not only to finish high school, but to go on to college. So they are really survivors, and we love that picture because it shows how tender they are with little Julian. That picture was taken the day after they brought him home from the hospital. That picture also shows how nicely he's swaddled. And at our table during dinner, we were talking about teaching young moms to swaddle their babies. Since so many of our mothers have very little mothering themselves, you can imagine what that feels like to not have the support or somebody to go to say, what do I do? And you know, we've all read those sad stories in the paper about children who are shaken. And swaddling is one of the ways that you can comfort a very young baby. And so every nurse is well prepared. And one of our program volunteers actually makes all of our swaddling blankets. In the winter they get flannel ones, in the summer they get nice soft cotton thin ones, but every mother learns to swaddle. I put a lot of Velcro in those, as you can tell. This is Mom Jasmine Denzel at 6 months, and Nurse Ellie Fenner. And Ellie was one of our original NFP nurses, so she's been with us 10 years. And Ellie is well known in the community. I don't think she can go into any neighborhood she's not recognized by somebody. Oh, you took care of me when? She's really, really delightful. And she has graduated herself, just Ellie, has graduated 75 clients at this point, so it's a lot of years of work. So Jasmine got pregnant her senior year in high school, and she and her baby's father both graduated from high school last June. They both work part-time, and they both attend Northampton Community College. They have continued to live with their respective families, he with his, she with hers, and both families care for the baby Denzel. So this situation has really worked well for them. This is one of the few couples that really enjoys strong family support. Little interest though, we were talking about the multicultural aspects of this program, and the baby's dad is from Kenya. And so when Denzel is at the grandparents' house, at his parents' house, there's a whole different cultural standard for how that baby is taken care of. Grandma insists on carrying him constantly, because in that culture you would have the baby strapped to you, literally. And the baby eats everything that they eat. Well, Denzel is 6 months old. You know, there are a lot of things he shouldn't be eating at this point. And so we've got a little bit of friction here between Jasmine and the dad's family of how this should be. And once a week when Jasmine works late, the baby actually sleeps at that house. But Grandma thinks that the baby should be sleeping in bed with her. That's what you would do in that culture. That's how they would protect their baby from harm. In our culture, that's not something we would do. You know, Back to Sleep campaign. And Jasmine knows that really well, but how do you work out that cultural problem? To be continued. We don't know how it's going to work. She's delightful, isn't she? And Jasmine's goal is to be a nurse, and she's going to make it. She is a very smart young lady, and really so successful, and such a delightful family. We're just so pleased to have her. Excited every time Ellie comes to teach her something else. Our nurses visit weekly. That one doesn't want to leave. Our nurses visit weekly or every other week. Nurse Family Partnership provides guidelines and lots of wonderful, up-to-date, research-based information. And they have much to share in terms of community resources, or how to apply for a job, which many young moms wouldn't know. So they continue to present what the mother wants to know. Again, like Heart's Desire, you're basing this on what she feels that she needs. The nurse is there to offer information, not to tell her what to do, because what a bigger turnoff could there be if you were there always to say, no, you're doing that wrong. It doesn't work. And the next thing you know, you have no moms, because they don't want that. So, this is Mother Tempest and Baby Willow. And Nancy and I always have a funny story about that. You see that she's sitting in this wonderful rocker that was donated to the program. The only other piece of furniture in that apartment, and this was down on Turner Street in Allentown, is that mattress that you see the corner of on the floor. That was it. And they had just moved in, and there wasn't much opportunity to get much else. But Tempest was breastfeeding little Willow and needed a chair to sit in. It was really getting to be a problem. And Nancy and I delivered that chair and ended up watching a drug deal going on right across the street as Denise, the nurse, and I were carrying that chair in. Nancy is out there with her car, afraid that the guy is watching us watch him. We were so glad to get out of there. But our nurses are wonderful. They are not afraid. They're very, very aware of what's going on around them. They know the neighborhoods to avoid. They know the neighborhoods that you don't want to be in after dark. And they have this amazing sixth sense of where to be, what you're watching, how to behave, and when to leave. So they're always very safety conscious. So Tempest, the mom, and Willow's dad both suffer from serious mental health issues. Ongoing, everything that you can imagine. Dad suffered every kind of abuse as a child, and early on, Nurse Denise described him as a ticking time bomb. This man was so incredibly tense and so afraid that he was going to abuse his baby as he had been abused. And so Denise had a dual role here, not only in taking care of Tempest, the mother, and educating her, but of working with him and getting him over time to trust her, so that when she said to him, seek counseling, let's do this, let's find some resources for you to get help, that he did. He finally did it. But he was doing it through a system that had never supported him. Mm-hmm. And it was just the saddest thing. But Denise said that she could see such glimmers of tenderness in him when Tempest was pregnant, because they had little tiny kittens that they had taken in from the street. And he was so tender with those tiny kittens that she said, he will be okay. He will be okay. He can do this job. And they are such devoted parents to little Willow. They both have received counseling. They both continue to work on their problems. And Tempest's goal was to be a stay-at-home mom for Willow's first year, and she continually breastfed for that entire year and cried when Willow turned 1 and she gave it up. It was really touching. And her current life goal is to get her GED, and she's currently enrolled in a GED program up in Penargil. She works part-time. She is extremely bright and is an avid reader. She has the potential to be very, very successful. Interesting that she and Willow's dad got married when Willow was a little infant and moved up to Wind Gap because they thought it was a better environment for raising Willow. Isn't that nice? Mm-hmm. So really, really care. Tempest reads and plays with Willow every day. She really takes to heart everything that Denise teaches. Every book that comes into the house, they read and read and read. She's on the floor with the baby, as the father is too. She wants so badly to be a positive role model for her daughter, and you can see that playing out in everything she does. She recognizes the need to give back to the nurse-family partnership, and Willow outgrows her clothes and her toys. She washes everything up, packs it nicely, and gives it to Denise to share with another family. And that's just so touching. So they continue to be the very best parents. This is Willow. This caterpillar that she's riding was given to us by somebody who had outgrown it. Is that darling? And the thing I especially like about that picture are Dad's strong hands around that baby. He is just the very best dad. Happy? She's 19 months old now. this is going to be a very hard one for Denise when that baby turns 24 months. Beautiful picture, isn't it? So what do you see there? That's Nurse Melody on the left, the one with the bubbles. And mom, baby, what else do you see? What do you think is going on there?
The television set.
Sorry?
Television set?
No, that's a
The
couch.
window?
It's a window, that's a window with a shade. Yeah. The house is clean and cared for. Mom, obviously, nice haircut. Baby, very engaged in those bubbles. Isn't that a job you want, to be able to go blow bubbles with that baby? Everybody would like to go there. The mother is Heather. The baby is Mackenzie. Mackenzie, actually, in that picture, is 3 months old. Can you believe that? Look at her. She's a very precocious baby. She is really into that. Loves those bubbles. She's watching everything Mel does. Mel first met Heather, and Heather was not sure she needed a nurse. Heather was a very streetwise young lady. She was very clear that she didn't want someone telling her what to do. And Mel suggested that she try out the nurse-family partnership just to see if they could work together, how this was going to work. Heather was a high school dropout. She had used recreational drugs, and she was a fighter. She was a fighter physically. She'd been in fights, and she was a fighter in her head. She was an angry young woman. Her mother, whom she lives with, works very hard to support the family on her salary as a home health aide, so there's very little money. So during the pregnancy, it was determined that Mackenzie had a major cardiac defect. Kind of changes things, doesn't it? Here you are with this teen mom with a baby who hopefully would survive the surgeries that would be needed to correct this. And if you see, she's had 2 surgeries now. She has this one, the long scar that you see, and there's another one that goes up and around her neck. So taking care of Mackenzie after birth required that she go and live at Children's Hospital of Pennsylvania, CHOP, for the last 4 weeks of her pregnancy. She was so frightened. And while she could live at Ronald McDonald House, she turned 18 just as it was time to go down there. They wouldn't take her because she was too young. And this required such sacrifice on the part of her family. An estranged father, who she did not know, agreed that he would go down for a few days at a time. Her mother, every weekend or every day off, would go down and spend time. An aunt, everybody would pitch in because Heather had to be there. And it was major endeavor for all of the family. She was so excited she called Mel often, and she'd say, "The nurses are amazed at what I know." And she said, and I just tell them, I have a nurse at home. And Mel just taught her so well to work with them and to lose the attitude. It's very hard to do. So immediately after Mackenzie was born, they did surgery. They took the baby right from the delivery room, took her to the newborn intensive care unit and kept her there. And until the surgery could be done. And so Mackenzie was in the nursery. Heather would go and see her, but wasn't allowed to do very much at that time. So they did the surgery, the first surgery, right away. And wouldn't you know, the baby ended up with a really severe infection that could have killed her. And Heather was so worried because it soon became evident that she was going to need a second surgery. She did not want the baby to have to go through that again. But there weren't a lot of choices, right? That's what you did. And so Mel worked very hard to turn Heather from being a very belligerent, tough young woman to an advocate for her baby. And by being an advocate, she had a say in what was happening. She had to learn to approach people in a more adult manner and to express her needs and her baby's needs, but do it appropriately. And so when Mackenzie had her second surgery, she posted signs all over the baby's room demanding that people wash their hands before they touched her baby. Isn't that great? She learned. And obviously this is still new, and she is going to be having another surgery in October, early November. And when Mel sat in the office with me the other day telling me more about them, and after the second surgery, Mel went with her to Allentown when they removed those sutures up around the baby's neck. And the medication that they gave the baby to relax ended up doing just the opposite and making her very hyper. She was screaming. And Mel and Heather were holding the baby down while they did this delicate work because those sutures were about the size of a little hair, and there were many of them. And Mel said that she could hear Heather's tears dropping on her baby's chest. And Mel started crying too, because that's what you do when you're a nurse, right? You cry right along with them. But she did such a fantastic job, and Mel continues to work with her to be organized, to anticipate appointments, to be sure that she has a ride to get there. She keeps her calendar. She has just done such a wonderful job, and she has never missed an appointment with a physician or with Mel. So she has come a long way as a very, very good mom. And Mel reports that Mackenzie, for all of her problems, is very developmentally appropriate, as you can see from the first picture. She's a very bright baby, and she will continue to follow them. Heather does not want her baby being a cardiac baby, and she's had to even learn how to hold her because, so many of us, when we lift a baby, grasp right under the arms and pick them up. With a cardiac baby, you can't do that. You scoop them so that you're holding the whole body. And she's become an expert in caring for this child. And now her goal is to go back. She is currently preparing to test for her GED, and she's interviewing for a job at the Sands. So, and is looking forward to working part-time. So, those are my pictures for you. Do you have questions, or what can I answer for you about any of the cases or anything else?
You mentioned that they start before the birth. What's involved in that?
We start before the birth?
Yes.
Yes, we start actually
working with the mothers.
Yeah, we start early in pregnancy so that we can help them meet the first NFP goal of having a healthy pregnancy. And we are very proud of our statistics of a very low birth rate, and not as many preterm babies as other programs are, as even seen across the nation. We help mothers learn what to eat when they're pregnant. We help them continue to work on their life goals. And one of the main reasons that we start in pregnancy is so the client, the young mom, has an opportunity to develop a trusting relationship with that nurse early on before that baby gets there. So, it's one thing if you go and present yourself to a young mom when that baby is there, because why should she trust you other than it says that you're a nurse? So they've had some time to develop that relationship, and the nurse has had an opportunity to develop a relationship with her family. And again, we're going back to many cultural issues. you're looking at a grandmother from a different culture. Why should she trust this woman? Why should she trust us just because it says RN? So it's all in terms of building a relationship. Yes?
You'll follow them for 2 years. At the end of 2 years, if you've got a mom who very obviously needs continued supervision, care, where do they go? Where do you turn them over to?
It's a good thing you asked that. We have a program at the Visiting Nurses of St. Luke's called PATH, which is Parent Advocate in the Home. And there are 4 nurses who work in that program. And many times, if we have a client who is still in need, one of those nurses will continue to see her until the baby is 3, sometimes even a little bit longer. And the goals in that year would be to get the baby ready for preschool, now toddler ready for preschool, or into Head Start. And so we work very closely with them at times.
How do you get in touch with these young girls?
How do we find them?
Yes, or they find you?
Oh yeah, some of them do. We receive referrals from many of the hospital clinics. St. Luke's has a very good OB clinic. Lehigh Valley Hospital, Sacred Heart, Easton Hospital. Some of the private physicians accept medical assistance and will call us. And the best referrals are those from the clients themselves. You saw my sister, you know my friend, I want the same nurse that my friend Jasmine has. And so when the clients call us, they're more likely to stick. They know something about the program, and they've been told by their friend, who they trust, that this is a good thing for them to do. So, yes?
What might a day or time be like when a nurse goes to visit or meets with a client and baby?
The actual visit with the client?
Yes.
Well, each visit is structured according to what the mother wanted to learn in that visit. So at the end of the previous visit, she and her nurse would have talked about what they want to do next. And there is a whole guideline, like looking at an index that says how to comfort a crying baby, or what my baby needs to be healthy, or how to potty train, which of course most mothers want to do when they're about 9 months. And so the nurse brings back this material, and that's the goal for the next program, for the next day, because of course, if you pick the topic, you're more likely to be interested in it than the nurse saying, well, I know what's best for you. So that's how it's set up. Each nurse has a caseload of 25 clients, each full-time nurse. So she structures her week to see her mothers according to the mother's schedule. Now, you know, when you have a whole bunch of adolescents, that's a real hard thing, because we have youngsters who are in school, and we've got mothers who work, and so the nurse may be starting work at 8 o'clock, but then she doesn't end until 7 at night, so she's working. And then, of course, as I said, we don't want our nurses in certain neighborhoods after dark, so she's having to work that in too. Interesting scheduling that we do. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yes?
I have a peripheral question. Over a decade ago, I heard a talk by a social worker in Allentown who said that their agency advised young mothers who are still in high school to give their babies up for adoption immediately after birth. Do you know if this practice is still going on?
No, I don't think so. I have not heard of that going on. Now, I will say that when a client is called by a nurse-family partnership nurse, one of our first questions to them is, are you planning to parent? Because with our limited resources, to start a mom and then find out that she's going to relinquish that baby doesn't really help us, or even her, since what we're looking for is that 2-year. And actually, I haven't even heard that in a long time.
Well, as I said, this was over a decade ago,
Yeah.
so perhaps this was the preferred
The thought
mode
at
at
the
that
time.
time.
Yeah. Other questions?
Crystal didn't seem to have much family support. Where
No.
did she get the money to be able to go and take her cosmetology course?
Well, it came from a friend in the community,
Oh.
that we actually got the things that she needed. And her class itself was paid for through welfare dollars because of where she was at the time and the money that was available. They would pay for her to go to school, you know, as long as she stayed in school.
Mhm.
And then we had to provide the extra things that she needed. So, you know, we work within a community, and that was one of the things we were able to do for her. Yes?
You just mentioned, you were able to supply some of the things that they needed for the children. Do you have something set up to receive donations from the public as far as, you know, that little caterpillar that seemed like it was brand new and things like that? Do you take donations?
We take donations, however, we have very limited storage space. We're really packed in, and so we have a small storage area that, a shed, if you will, it is a shed. And so when we get donations, we go through them carefully to make sure that they're things that actually would be used by our families. We get wonderful donations of things like pack and plays, and we get wonderful things like the little caterpillar and things like that. But when they don't move, we find other families in the community, or like our PATH program, that could possibly use them. We also always need board books. Yeah, we have 250 families. That's a lot of books. So I brought a little selection of some of our favorites. Good Night Moon. Everybody needs that, right? Every family gets one or two of our black and white books. They're very, very popular, and it's the earliest book that babies actually can see with the sharp contrast between black and white and sometimes red. If you know of somebody that has something that they would like to donate, if you call me, I can tell you whether or not we have room for it at the time. So the other things that sometimes people will offer to do are things like doing a diaper drive, doing a book drive. Is that the cutest thing? And so diapers and books and things like nursing pads and Desitin diaper cream and all of those, the things that we go through so quickly. 250 kids, that's a lot of diapers. So, what else? Linda?
Well, I know that you've told us about a lot of success stories, but you have sadder stories too. And I wouldn't want everyone to think that every family ends up, you know, in a wonderful situation, because you don't have any control over that either.
No, we don't. No, we don't. And there are families that it makes it very, very difficult to work with when we have such severe mental health issues. As you know, more and more of the services are not there anymore. We have to do more with less. And there are times that, for instance, one of the nurses came in today so downhearted because a mother that we know has severe mental health problems wasn't there for the visit for the third time. And so we start to wonder, where is she? Is she safe? You know, what's happening with her? Because sometimes they really need help, and it's very hard to find. We have to say that we do scan the police blotter in the paper to see if we know the family or if there's something going on in the home, because we're sending nurses into places where there are gangs. There's a lot of gang activity here in the Lehigh Valley, across the Lehigh Valley, and so you're always looking. And as I said, the nurses are always looking too when they're in their cars, but we like to have a little heads up. So it's difficult work, and it doesn't always come out the way we would like, but we do our best.
Sort of in a similar fashion, you said the program lasts until the child's 2.
Mm-hmm.
Do you keep in touch with them, or do you ever hear what happens next? And
We do, yes.
Well, hearing them.
After they've had that relationship, sometimes the closest relationship they've ever had in their life, they will continue to call their nurse. As a matter of fact, Jane came in today and said that she'd gotten a call from her former client. Baby is 3, so it's been a year since she graduated, and she said, I've decided it's time that she went to preschool. Where would you suggest I send her? And I was attending a meeting at St. Luke's Community Health Department, since we are a community health program, and I was looking at the young woman sitting next to me thinking, she looks so familiar. And when they said her name, I thought, that's why I know her. She was a former client. And she and her boyfriend had gotten married after their baby had turned 2 and they graduated. They had both been successful in high school, and she had gone on to become a certified medical assistant, and that's why she works for community health. Is that exciting? I love that. And so when you go to Valley Farm Market, there's several of our clients working there. We have a couple who are bank tellers, and we have 3 who work at the Sands. As a matter of fact, Friday night we had a big event at Steel Stacks, and Nancy was chair of that. It was a lovely, lovely experience. And one of the dads of our program, one of our infants actually, works at Steel Stacks, and came up and said, I'm one of your dads. We really like that. We like seeing our families again. We like hearing from them. And when I started in Nurse Family Partnership, I had a caseload. And so one of my early babies is now 8, almost 8. And her mom still calls me. Whenever she starts school, I get a call saying that she's gone on. And you don't lose that connection. It's still there. It's like having grandkids, kind of. Yes?
Do your nurses give any medical care, or is it more really the social worker sort of function?
It's primarily education. Now, as nurses, we have of course a large amount of medical knowledge of baby situations, and all of the nurses come with different experience. For instance, many of our Easton nurses were emergency department nurses, so their experience was much different than mine as a nurse midwife. And Ellie, whom you met earlier, is a pediatric specialist. Tina was a lactation consultant, and so wide variety of experience. And they will call each other and say, this is what I'm seeing. What do you think? And so there's a lot of thumbing back and forth. Thank God for cell phones, I'll tell you, in this business. And we don't do things like dressing changes and stuff like that, but we've seen and diagnosed some pretty nice cases of diaper rash. So, we don't look in ears generally. We look for the signs, the external, but the nurses don't go out with things like otoscopes, and we do blood pressures for moms and things like that. So it's a little bit different. We combine those roles. And actually, I mentioned that this program is based on 30 years of evidence-based practice by research by Dr. Oles. And he found that in doing all of this early research that nurses were the ones to use for the program because they are trustworthy. They are the most trusted profession in the country. We remember after 9/11, it was firefighters for a while. We made it back to the top. So it works that way. Linda?
I know at our table tonight we were talking about training for the women, and maybe Kelly could tell us a little bit about what she was saying at our table, how difficult and extensive the training is.
As Sarah had mentioned, is this too close? As Sarah had mentioned, our nurses have a wide variety of educational background and work experience. But to be an NFP nurse, you have to go to NFP school. And at NFP school, you have to travel to Colorado, and you have to go through some classes. First, you have 2 sets of classes. One is from a home, and it's a computer-based class, and that's kind of like an overview of the program and the 30 years of research that have gone into this national program. When you go to NFP school, you're there for about a week. And they're all-day sessions, and it's an intensive session. You have a book that you have to read and plan and prepare for before you go out. And at those sessions, it gives the nurses the tools they need to do this job. They teach you how to teach your clients, how to form that relationship, how to use the guidelines appropriately with each of your clients, because things are mapped out. Now, Sarah said that the client gets to choose what information you have, but there's a preset like menu that they get to kind of choose from based on where they are in pregnancy, infancy, or toddlerhood. And so at NFP school, you learn about the theories that go behind it, the educational theories and the social theories that have been intertwined through the entire program. So at NFP school, you get those kinds of tools. When you come home, you still have other goals that you need to meet. And this training period is pretty long, and it lasts about a year or more. Currently, I've been with the Nurse Family Partnership for just a year. And my background is in community health, and I have a master's degree in community health, but that doesn't mean that you don't go to NFP school. You still go to NFP school, and I have one more training to go through until I'm done with my training to be a nurse. And not only is it awesome to be a part of this program and to learn all these things, but you see how much goes into it, time, effort, and expense, because these nurses have such a great amount of training that it is very expensive for this program to handle. Just for one nurse to be trained, it can cost like almost $10,000. So you really want people who are committed and dedicated to doing this. And you have to have a specific skill set where you're able to educate, do assessments, be able to talk to people, form good relationships, and not be afraid to go into some of the worst areas and things like that.
Other questions?
I guess this is obvious. All of your clients are on Medicaid or on welfare.
Not all of them. With in pregnancy, all would be on Medicaid most likely. Occasionally, we have a teen mom who would be covered by her parents' insurance. Let's say mom works at St. Luke's in housekeeping. This client can most likely still qualify. But then once the baby is born, the baby, of course, isn't going to be under mom and dad's insurance, and that baby would probably be receiving Medicaid. We have to financially certify them to come into the program. And we're allowed to take clients, moms, up to 235% of the federal poverty guideline, which is about $40,000 a year. I'll tell you though, that currently our average household income is $16,500. That's not a lot of money. And that includes everybody in the house, everybody who supports the house. So you're looking at her parents as well. That's not much money. And in the last year, our income level has actually fallen by $1,500. So the poor are getting poorer. So not all of our clients are teens. Our average age is 19. So we have some as young as 14, and we have some who are as old as 36. You can still be 36 years old and not know what to do with a baby and qualify by being poor. We've actually had several college graduates in the program who, given the state of our economy, that they are very poor too. We have some who are in college, and we currently have a number of college students. And that's a wonderful thing because we can make great impact there. We currently have 2 moms who are in high school, and the fathers of their babies are in middle school. That's a first for us.
Oh.
So, yeah, we look at our cultural mix. Let's see, what else can I tell you about some of our demographics?
Question. I think you said it has to be the first pregnancy.
Yes.
So is part of the aim keeping them from getting pregnant again before they get goals and education?
You are right. Yes. Dr. Olds actually, in doing his early research, found that the first time pregnant mom is the most, oh my gosh, what do I do moment in that young woman's life. So, second pregnancy, she's already kind of figured out what to do, right or wrong, she's figured it out. And so he found that you made the most impact with that first pregnancy. We have national benchmarks that are set by the national program, and so our subsequent pregnancy rate at 2 years is not supposed to be more than 25%. And we are currently at between 22 and 23%. We do have them. We most definitely have them. But because we've been so concerned about this, one of our quality improvement programs that we're working on and have been working on for over about 18 months is reducing that subsequent pregnancy rate and teaching the nurses even more about birth control, having them ask the hard questions. Not all women are interested, and but it is something that we continue to work on.
Do you have any facilities for children who are born with special needs, such as diagnosed with autism or
we have
this little
resources.
girl had a medical situation, but there are other needs.
Well, maybe some of you have heard of the early intervention program, and we do work very closely with them when we discover a baby that's not meeting benchmarks, as we call it, the ages and stages criteria, that we refer to early intervention, and then the nurse tries to be there when they come out to do the evaluation of our baby. And even though they used to say that autism couldn't be diagnosed that early, we're finding that there are more and more signs. And we work very closely with those workers to identify babies and continue to keep them apprised of what's happening when we're there. We have babies with feeding issues, and Easter Seals has a wonderful feeding clinic, and so we work very hard to get our babies in to be evaluated there. They establish a treatment plan to help that baby improve in eating. Some babies don't like solids, they don't like textures, there are a number of things there and with 10 years of experience, we know quite a bit about what's here in the Lehigh Valley and how to find that. So thank you for that question.
At one point, there was a rise in teen pregnancy. It was kind of like a status symbol. Is the teen pregnancy rate still going up, or is it diminishing? I don't hear as much about it, and
The teen pregnancy rate in the United States has seemed to be going down for a while. In the Lehigh Valley, that's not the case. We still have many teens getting pregnant, and I think especially for young girls who aren't doing well in school, a pregnancy is like something that brings them some attention, something else to think about. And many of them, by the time the nurse is there or enters her life, she's already dropped out of school. And, well, I'm going to be a mother, I can't be in school. And so one of the nurse's first priorities is getting her back into school or working on that GED. And we know quite a bit about the school system and how to get the different programs that we need too. What else? Linda?
So tell us a little something about where your funding comes from. If it costs $10,000 for one nurse and you're going to need a pilot nurse,
Yes.
Where does your money come from?
The Nurse Family Partnership in Pennsylvania is funded by a grant from the Office of Child Development and Early Learning, OCTEL. And of course there is much need in the state. This program came into being under Governor Tom Ridge, and his wife has remained very committed to Nurse Family Partnership. As a matter of fact, she serves on the national board. So we do receive some grant money, and we lie in fear every summer that we're going to be cut again. We also may bill Medicaid for visits that the nurses make to their babies. Of course, it doesn't cover the entire cost of a visit. but at least it's something. Not all of our babies receive MA, so we're always left with a little bit of a shortfall there. The rest comes from the community. We are, according to OCDEL, required to have a 10% match. Our match is more like 20% at this time, because as nursing salaries go up, benefits go up, training goes up, flights to Denver go up, all of these things. The state doesn't say, well, here, Sarah, you need a little bit more money to have that happen. So we have to fundraise, and we have many wonderful community partners who help us with that, and who say, we realize the importance of this program, and we're very happy to help you. We are always looking, so pull out your checkbook. We're happy to have your help. So that's what we do, and every year we're afraid that we won't have enough to continue. Yes?
All of the examples that you gave, the moms seem to have family support, parents there, a boyfriend there. I'm sure that there are a number of them, though, that are really totally alone. How do you work with them and handle them when there's no support for them at all?
The nurses have one of their facilitators is called My Village, and it looks at who is in her life. It may not be a family member. She may be like Crystal and not have anybody at all. It may be that she has a friend, somebody, and we're always looking to identify resources. We call it scaffolding in client. So it can't always be the nurse, because you're not there on the weekend, and you're not there at night, and you're not there when the baby needs something at 3 in the morning. And so we're looking at her village and helping her identify who's there. And they do like little stoplights on them. Is that a green person that you're identifying? Is it a red person? Or is it maybe sometimes good, like the friend that just turned on you, that kind of thing. And so we're always helping her look at who is in her network at that time. And it changes frequently, just like it does with us. But with us, I think you tend to know who you can always go to. And they don't always have that. We had a client just 2 weeks ago who, her boyfriend was becoming more and more abusive. And it got to the point on Saturday that he had stolen her paycheck from, she works at Outback as a matter of fact. She needed a place to go. He'd stolen her car payment money. And Ellie walked into this situation, and the client was in tears, and he was storming back and forth in front of the front door. And Ellie said to her, where can you go? What can you do? I don't have anybody, there's no place for me to stay. And they finally identified that she could go temporarily to her grandmother's house. She's sleeping on the couch there, but at least she and her baby are safe. So we're always looking, and the support is sometimes really difficult. Yes?
The last time I heard an NFP presentation, there was a strong literacy component.
Oh,
Can you
yes.
mention that at all?
Yeah, books are a big part of what we do, and we continue to find people in the community who love books as much as we do. And the little books that Kelly was holding up earlier, we didn't have those when we first started. We were hitting garage sales and always looking for any kind of board book, anything that we could put into the hands of our children. And we've developed this really nice literacy program so that each family has a little library by the time that baby graduates. Because if you're not exposed to books at an early age, you're not going to realize the importance of those. One of our young moms who has since graduated, I saw her when her baby was about 22 months old, and the baby loved the moon, and she wanted a copy of Goodnight Moon for her baby. And so Sunny, her nurse, brought this book out. And the baby kept going, moon, 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 and she'd go to the window and she'd look and she'd come back and she'd point to her book. And that mom was raised in the Lehigh Valley, but had never had a book. If she brought home a school book, it went on the shelf because the parents were so afraid that something would happen to that book and they would have to pay for it. There were no books in the home. And Sunny started working with her to bringing her books to read to her baby in utero. And the first book we actually give to our moms is Oh Baby, the Places You'll Go. And we give it at 20 weeks gestation because it's a book to be read in utero. And it's a silly Dr. Seuss book with funny rhymes, and so this is where it starts. And so the mom developed a comfort level with reading to her baby in utero, continued as an infant, continued on, and the mom, through reading to her baby, developed a love of books herself. And she told me she was so proud because she had graduated to chapter books. And she was reading for pleasure. We developed a reader, and she was looking now at going on and going to college. She would never have considered it before. She didn't read well enough. So literacy is, I think, more pronounced in this program here because of our resources with books and the connections that we've built with books than any other program that I'm aware of. Nancy, Kelly? So as a matter of fact, we have a retired librarian who has been instrumental in picking the very best children's books for us, the very best. And every book is carefully researched, and so we know what to buy. It's great, works really well for us.
Okay, so it's just children's books that you start with?
Yes.
And then it's up to the mom whether she wants to get into adult books.
Many of our nurses meet their clients at the library to introduce them to the library. Libraries were not anything that was for them as children. Libraries were for other people, not for them. And so just getting her in the door, getting that library card is a really important thing. And it's just phenomenal when you see them there. And some of our nurses actually teach in the library mom-baby programs, so that they will go there and say, "That's my nurse." It's very effective. They like seeing their nurses in the community. What else? Linda?
I know that you've answered a lot of questions, and I think it's appropriate to announce that the Nurse Family Partnership is going to be AAUW's project this year. So you will be getting a letter shortly asking you to consider making a donation to this particular Nurse Family Partnership program. And I can testify, having worked with Sara for many years, that they do an outstanding job, as you've heard tonight. It's just, thank you for what you do.
This will be our project for the our charity for this year, for the year, though. We won't be asking for another charitable donation at the end of the year, such as for Turning Point. It will be Nurse Family Partnership.
Thanks to all of you for your support. It means so much to have you in our community and to understand the work that we do. If you ever have questions, by all means, call me. I have a stack of business cards up here, and I also have the program brochure. So please feel free to take one. It gives some very basic information about what we do and the goals that we work on with each family throughout the program. Anything else?
I want to mention the need for volunteers.
Now, as a program, we're always needing volunteers for various things. If you feel that you have friends or community that you want to volunteer by doing a diaper drive or doing a book drive or collecting things for us, we can always use that. I was telling Linda at our table that we, this time of year, we make sure that each of our babies has a warm coat or jacket or bunting. So each baby that needs one has something warm to wear. And of course, it's not just the bunting. It has to be a hat or two and a warm scarf too, because our babies and our families are those that you see walking with the strollers because we have very few cars. or car with no heat or air conditioning. And as a matter of fact, Mel was telling me that Heather she has this old ramshackle car, and she was concerned about transporting the baby because there was no air conditioning in the car. So she rigged up a fan that plugged into her cigarette lighter, and she has it clipped to the seat to blow air on McKinsey. So they're very resourceful, but that's probably not gonna pass the next time the car goes in. So any kind of help like that you can give us, we would really, really appreciate. Because they're the things that we need all the time. So that's the kind of volunteer work we need. We're also looking at Christmas, and I was talking to Marge before the meeting started, and she's volunteered to knit mom scarves for us. Thank you, Marge. And because for Christmas, every mom gets a hand knit scarf. Isn't that a wonderful thing? And we are always looking for gifts.
I'll do one, a couple too.
Okay, thank you, thank you. We try to have a gift for every mother and every baby. And so far we've been successful. There are some tight times there, but we always have something. So you can always use help. I appreciate that.
Okay, everyone, thank you for coming through. Nancy too. We had quite an interesting conversation at the table, so these ladies are really well trained. I said, isn't just your 4-year graduate nurses training good enough? Oh, no. Yeah. So please come up, talk to the ladies, come up and see their pamphlets, and get to know them a little better if you like. And also we have containers for leftovers if anyone would like food to take along or take your own if there's any left.